Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Weber, and today we have something new and different. Shannon Port of artofthefeminine.com is here to talk to us about healing the manipulated sexuality of humanity and deconstructing the dark force. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you, Alfred. It's really nice to be connecting with you. It's an honor.
Thank you. You know, I was very gratified when you contacted us and you said that you're really looking at the new paradigm of love and the sexual energy, and that you realize that what we have been dealing with in reporting on the area of exposing the pedophilia, ritual child sacrifice, and child trafficking networks, which appear to be part of the current structural matrix at the governmental level, at the transhumanist agenda level, at the monarchies, at the governments, the parliaments, the schools, the police, the social services agencies. I mean, the cases are just horrific. And so if there's any place that needs healing, it's this. So I really welcome your initiative and your coming forward. And so I know that you'll be bringing us a lot of insight as to the new paradigm. Could you speak to us first as to why we have such an afflicted use of the divine sexual energy on this planet in terms of pedophilia, in terms of ritual child sacrifice, child rape, all of that?
Yeah. So as you know, we're living in a consciousness that is much lower than what was intended for the human race. We fell into a paradigm where we embraced the denser reality, the materialistic reality so strongly that we gave up we really gave up our own power to remain connected to the divine spark that animates human life, and that gives us the full power of our potential to move between the worlds and to know both spirit and matter. And so when we fell into consciousness, one of the ways we fell is that we began to use the greatest power that we have, which is the power of the goddess, the sexual force, also known as the desire force, in a way that took that force in the downward spiral. And so we took it towards the South Pole. We took it down we began to use our sexual energy in a way that anchored us deeper and deeper into this paradigm, which is about which is so much different than where we come from. But it's a paradigm of deception, a paradigm of lies, a paradigm of siphoning power from the outside. It's a paradigm that's fixated on the outer plane, and so it's completely out of balance. It's complete loss of the inner plane and complete fixation on what is in the outer plane. So we often associate the outer plane with form and with the material world. And so the material world is a beautiful, beautiful thing. But when we forget that spirit and matter work together, we go so low in consciousness that we think we have to consume everything from an outer source, and a source that really doesn't even have any of its own power. So with our sexual energy, we began to see other human beings as a food source rather than as a fellow spirit, and rather as a reflection of the divine spark within us. They became more of a food source that would satisfy an appetite. It became more of a, we have sensual appetites, and we have the desire to eat and to experience the material world. But when we started to see other human beings as that food source rather than as a mirror of our light, we got into trouble because we began to exchange energy in a way that helped, that took us deeper and deeper. And so I think that answers the first part of your question. Will you remind me, did you say something?
Well, it's just really to see how your work in the new paradigm of human sexuality and healing the manipulated sexuality of humanity can really bring some light into the whole area of exposing these pedophilia and ritual child sacrifice networks.
Yeah.
What should we as journalists, as public prosecutors, as parents, as concerned parents, as friends who are going in there, and in the case of Hampstead, I mean, in the UK, this is a whole upper kind of genteel area of London, which going back 200 years in the Hampstead Heath now, has is kind of a hub of pedophilia. It's like a culture that has invaded the earth.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering how, not only as a legal matter, but as a healing matter, one of the Mackenzie Friends, the woman who founded the movement, said on a recent video about this issue, she said, and now we even have to heal them. We have to heal these abusers, the people who have been in the ritual abuse, this cultic ritual abuse, even for generations. It's kind of truth and reconciliation time. Nobody's going anywhere. We all have to heal. So it's that kind of bringing your insights into that area.
Yeah. So if we want to deconstruct the dark force, like you said, I like that. I like that language. We have to align ourselves and get into the right frequency to do so. And so there's different levels of finding a voice and finding inspired action to do just that, to deconstruct it. So we have to act, and we have to act where we're at when we feel called to take part in that healing and that deconstructing. We start where we're at. However, those people who are really willing to also look deep into their own being, their own soul, and recognize their own inner healing and their own inner spiritual work and their spiritual healing, will become very effective at doing just that, because you can't fight the dark on its home field, because it will have the advantage. You just can't do that. We do it, and we see it usually ends up, we pay a price for that, because we have to go in and enter at a place where they have the advantage. And this may come as a surprise, but the dark, in this paradigm that we've created, we're all a part of it. It is protected here. It has a certain level of protection because we're closer to its source of power than we are to the source within us, because we've come so far the other direction. And so in order to really, really find that inner power, we have to, those souls who have the wisdom to look inside and to start to do their inner work need to build that bridge back into the inner plane and really connect with their spark, which brings them in touch with their monadic consciousness, and anchor in. We're meant to be conduits of this higher light. We're meant to anchor it in, but it takes a little bit of work, and it also takes really being able to look at our own shadow and our own inner relationship between masculine and feminine, and then to start in our own life to live it as best we can. And a lot of that work comes through relationships, because healing the sexual paradigm, if you're in a relationship, what a better place to do that than to really start to see how your relationship is the microcosm of the imbalance on the planet, and whatever you can bring into your own world builds up power. For your word to become vivified and enlivened with a new frequency that is no longer, you see a lot of people really passionate and fighting and emotional, but a lot of this has to do with knowing how to direct the power of the emotional body. That's how we actually turn we reverse the paradigm back into to the direction where spirit is now in command over matter, rather than us being in bondage. I wanted to say something about and to begin to address the pedophilia, and this, like you said, where we find it in places most of the human race doesn't know about it yet. It's really starting to come into the light, and I believe this is the time. But the pedophilia, one of the things that pedophilia and the ritual abuse represent is the child, the consciousness and the innocence of the child. And the child, that pure consciousness of a young child that still has innocence, represents the divine inner child of the collective human being. And so it's a direct assault on what is to be the fruit of the union of spirit, of the inner marriage of spirit and matter within it's our own alchemy. The child in 3D, the physical child, represents that force. And so that's why that force is attacked, because it is pure. It still has a powerful link that, the dark needs a food source, because everything is a food source. And so the pedophilia and the abuse of that younger consciousness is robbing the human soul of its pure innocence, which is it's not ignorance, but it's divine innocence, which is the ability to be connected to the organic discovery of life and creativity and all things that take us into our more expanded version of our state. So pedophilia is one of the ways that it's the parasite that's in our human body, our collective body, that is only able to be there. However, we've all taken part in it because of our collective consciousness. It can remain. So it's a group effort as well to for us to all awaken, and it's happening. We've got some work ahead of us, but I believe it's happening, and I believe, yeah.
So that what you're saying is that this historical period where the dark, let's say, there's many different levels. One level could be the million years or so that we've been under the Lucifer rebellion, in kind of isolated and quarantine. But even more recently, the thousands of years in which pedophilia has been a feature of the planet, especially ways of channeling into darker spiritual entities for power. Since that now is ending, since we're moving into a new timeline and a new era, that that whole thing has served us collectively as a soul community in a spirit sense, and we're now moving on to to other lessons. So that you're saying, although it was a huge amount of suffering, it's suffering that we all as souls came here as part of a school that we signed up for in terms of reincarnation. Am I getting this wrong, or is that what you're saying?
Uh, I wasn't clear about that last part. It's not. I'm not saying that we all signed up for it, but I'm saying that we are part of a collective soul, the world soul, and we're connected to the planet. We're part of the planet, and we've been seeded from many different places, but we are part of. We really are one, and so helping to heal this has to do with healing the whole. Something you said. You mentioned healing those who are. Who are, it really is truly it's demonic, as you mentioned. It's summoning, it's summoning through it's usually using the goddess force. The goddess force is, if you think of it as, it's such a power, sexual energy. It brings up such a power that all depending on the frequency of the sexual act being used, it invites energies. And so all the way through the spectrum, from the very darkest to the very most, all the way into the very most divine and most pure emanation. So the level of consciousness of the sexuality and the ritual will magnetize to itself those entities that want to take part. And so when we're talking about this kind of evil, completely evil, abuse and robbing of innocence of children, and even, as you said, the people who take part in it have been subjected to it, many of them as well. So part of it's part intentional and part an automatic. It's a possession. There's possession of many people. They've been possessed from the time they were young, because they were born into this as well. And so you're right that we're going to have to, many of them will want to heal. They will. And I believe as this comes more into the light, they'll want to heal. But so back to saying, did we choose this? Well, we chose on some level to mate with the lower perception. It's a perception. And so we fell in our perception, and we got pretty, we created more of this beast that kept us here. And so we are part of a collective that is now preparing to heal and to build the bridge between the masculine and the feminine. It's the heart. It's the energy of the heart that was completely, oh gosh, how's the best way to describe it? The feminine and the collective energies of the woman were manipulated, because it's if you can manipulate the feminine energy, then you can control an entire planet or an entire race. And so it was the feminine, and that's how it ties into my work. The feminine was completely programmed to project to project and to perpetuate the fallen consciousness. And we can get into that if you want to later. But yeah, it's and children represent the feminine, because also children, before they've had hormonal changes, are still part of the feminine. They're still part of the heart energy. And as you know, we all have our feminine and masculine energy, but the healing will come from building that bridge and remembering the balance, the equilibrating force that keeps spirit and matter happy, working together, that allows the dark to serve its purpose without completely taking over, completely veiling the spirit from human consciousness.
Right. Now you talk about and you've written a paper entitled "Reversing the Spell of the False Light Sexual Deception." And I feel that this ties into a lot of what you're saying. Could you tell us a bit about, you know, the insights in that paper?
Sure. And so I believe it starts out talking about the desire force, because the way we run our desires determines our reality. And so the desire force in this reality is mostly linked up to the appetites, the sensual appetites. And when we go so, as we talked about in the beginning, out of balance, that we're seeking our sensual appetites on the outside rather than remembering how we channel our desire force inward, which creates union with the higher part of our being. We are then, it's so easy to manipulate that, because it creates, we're in this holographic world, which is made up of this false light. It's a light that is so sparkly and glitters so much. We are, when we're only in our five senses, we just we reach at these things. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying the physical world, but we've become controlled by matter. We think that matter and form is the basis of this reality, is the foundation of reality. And so therefore, once you get the sensual appetites, reaching outward and wanting to, Satanism is materialism. It's a belief, it's a bowing down to form, and a bowing down, and then everything that it takes to maintain that paradigm, which means it's also bowing down to stripping other human beings of their sovereign rights as soul spirits by taking their innocence, by all of that. But the manipulation of humanity has largely come through. It's come through that our collectively, the sexual force is just, it's like it's at the level of, let's say, a 5-year-old in terms of our spiritual maturity and our understanding of what this powerful force that we have is all about. It's like we stayed there. We know, and I mean 5-year-old not as in the enlightened 5-year-old, but as in the 5-year-old that's trying to do calculus, but there's no way they're not going to be able to do it. We have this power within us, and we have two parts to our nature. We have our animal nature, and we have our divine nature. And our animal nature is the instinctual. It's the instinctual, and it's the part that makes us like the animal world. And we need that. We have to be connected to our instinctual animal nature to be here, because it grounds us in. But then we have our divine nature, which has the pure link to spirit and all of the memory of who we are and where we come from. So when the animal nature takes over, which the animal nature is just fueled by appetites, to eat, to consume, to conquer, to kill, to all of everything that all of the imbalance we see in the world is the animal nature ungoverned by any kind of the divine nature. It's just running crazy. And so we're feeding that with our consciousness in many ways we have given permission. We've subconsciously allowed for that. We've allowed for this to happen. A lot of it happens subconsciously, but we've given our consent to incest and pedophilia and all the Satanism. And I know that sounds horrible to say, but there's a little bit of we can look the other way. As long as we have our toys and our things and we have adrenaline rushes, and there's a lot of sex everywhere, and there's pornography coming at us from every which direction, and there's a new reality show about adrenaline and whatever. As long as we're getting high off that source, we're kind of saying it's like codependency. We'll look the other way just a little bit and not see it. Some of that is a lot of that is manipulated, but a lot of it is just we haven't checked our shadow. We haven't looked deeply into our own subconscious mind to see who's running this program, and am I running it? Am I part of it? through my actions. So it will be fascinating as more and more people decide to look in. Once you look in, and you get to see without any judgment, and that's the beauty of it, how actions in your own life or other lifetimes have helped to feed and create this beast, which we're trying to deconstruct right now.
Right. So what you're saying is that this exposing of the pedophilia and ritual child sacrifice and child trafficking networks is actually part of humanity collectively uncovering its shadow, but also individually confronting everybody, individually confronting their shadow. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I like the way you said that. Exactly. We all carry part of the shadow. We do. And so the best place to heal is in your own life. And especially if you want to be really, really efficient at doing just what we're talking about, helping others heal. And because you become the embodiment, we're meant to embody the consciousness, and we know it a lot up here, and we're very interested in it. But when we go inward, we learn how to do the alchemy that helps us to actually be that chalice that's able to walk with that the regenerated goddess force. It's the understanding, it's the true vision, that the desire force, and it shows the Devil Tarot in the sacred archetypes shows us that it's our perception that was inverted. We don't see what really is. We see something. Our perception has been taken over by our sensual appetites. When you have addiction, or when you're out of balance, you see what you want to see. So you begin to create the reality by perpetuating that fallen consciousness. So we're all being used in that way, and until we see that, and so it plugs us into so we lose touch with our organic process and our organic tools for being in the world. And you talked about us seeing our own shadow. Yes. When you're able to see your own and to hold the space for it to be there and to realign and to experience a shift within, your own understanding awakens. And the real understanding is just to know that the only truth that there is our connection to our own life, our own divine spark within us. That is the only truth. The truth is that when we know that, everything then in the world begins to mirror that back to us, and we get to have such a more expanded experience here on this earth. And many of us are ready for a new way to live in our body, a new way to run our sexuality. It's not about this isn't about religious, any kind of religion or morality around sexuality that you have to. It's just about understanding what that energy is and what it creates. And the dark forces understand it very well. They know what sexuality is, and they know how they want to run it. Humanity, not so much. We don't really look into it. We know the animal side of sexuality, which we're here to experience, but we don't truly understand how it links us into it's our path back to spirit, and back to learning how to take the goddess force, the Kundalini energy, and move it up into the heart and into the third eye, and to reestablish those links that we were cut off from.
Right. Could you kind of walk us through this from biological point of view? Sex, the act of sex seems to be procreation, or that's what's true in the animal kingdom, or at least in certain species. how do we as humans differ from animals, and what legitimate functions does sex have? How is it connected beyond gratification of self
Yeah.
on kind of a hierarchy of needs? And how is it connected to soul development? Could you walk us through all of that?
Yeah, and that is a really, really great question. So if you look at the animal kingdom, and this always kind of fascinates me, when you look at the animal kingdom as well is governed by the animal instinct, the instinct to merge, the instinct to mate and to be territorial and to be aggressive in, sometimes in certain ways, and to procreate. But the animal kingdom is much more aligned with the seasons and with the waxing and waning and the alignment of the movement stillness than humans are. That the animal kingdom is instinctually connected to the planet and is governed by the impulse of nature with a capital N. Nature governs that. Human beings are actually, we have lost our connection with nature and the rhythm of mating with nature. We are actually, the way we mate has actually been become part of this paradigm, in that it's an insatiable, almost, the addicted part of sexuality. There's a huge addiction and a wound in human sexuality that's in the addiction matrix. That part is not even aligned with nature. It's out of control. It's out of balance. It's just insatiable, and it can really never be satisfied. Whereas the animal kingdom, there's a satisfaction with being in alignment with nature. So that's where that really shows that even on the level of just being an animal, we've lost our connection to the cycles and rhythms of mating. Human beings are different in that we came in with a conscious link to both worlds, to the different levels of the worlds. And we can consciously and deliberately access that at will. We are able to perform the inner alchemy intentionally. And so we are able to take these amazing vessels that we have, everything, our sex organs, all of our divine organs, and use them to make the best use of what we have to create alchemy and to create the true union, conscious union of spirit and matter, it's a divine birthright and a divine gift. And as far as our sexuality, so we're in this consciousness, so there's no way you can go around, and we've seen this in religion and in paradigms that try to say this is how it has to be. You have to mate this way. You have to only be in this kind of relationship. That doesn't work. So it's not about right and wrong. We're meant to, this is what I believe through all the writing and the work I've done. We're meant to have an organic process of remembering. And so that's going to look different for everybody, but it definitely involves finding pleasure with another human being or other human beings, to discover what pleasure is and how it opens our heart, how it opens our mind, how it brings up our pain, our wound, because it also sexuality also opens the wound of the subconscious and allows it to come up. It allows us access to what's below consciousness as well as what's above. We get to, through sexuality, we're dipping into all the worlds. And so I believe we're meant to learn through the process of our experience and through love, and and that means we may start out not learning through love and not learning through something that is of the heart and of wisdom. It may start out looking a little bit different, but I believe that we are not meant to. I mean, we're not meant to ever take that experience from another human being, to take another human being's organic sovereign right to discover that development of their sexual force on their own terms, in their own time. You know, there's certain times we come into agreements and contracts with other human beings, and we agree to experience pain and suffering, or pleasure, or betrayal, or addiction. And then we get to learn from that. But it's very different than being evil intentioned to actually manipulate the human race with exploitation of the feminine, overuse of pornography, just saturating. Our culture is saturated to the fact where it's coming down into our children. Our children are being robbed because it's coming so fast at them. They're being robbed of an organic awakening experience in puberty. So how it serves the soul is that it's our fuel, it's our goddess fuel, and we need to as we come deeper and deeper on the path, we need to take some of the reserves of that energy through discernment and learn how to focus it. It's focus, knowing how to focus it, knowing how to work with the desire force. We begin to want to, through our own power of discernment, to channel it into other areas that are gonna really help us on this return path. And that's as we become more wise and more sophisticated, we'll want to use it that way. But that's how it serves the soul. It serves the divine union of the soul as the bride to spirit, the return of that sacred union. It's the sacred union of the spirit and the soul. So, and we can go into some other things around that.
Right. You know, I guess my training and my approach, or at least now, is really to look at the for example, at a targeted nation, like American people that have been targeted by a satanic entity that has used a sexualization program to sexualize the society, break down the soul power of the society as part of a depopulation program to actually tear the American society apart, to bring the individual down to a lower spiritual level. That's what I personally have experienced, you know, over the years that I've been watching it, and I really felt similar things or not. And if your work now is trying to revive, you know, the connection between spirit and sexuality in the midst of a culture that has been targeted by this debate.
Yeah. I missed. Excuse me. I missed what you said. You said something, a kind of a program. I missed.
Sorry.
What kind of program? It broke up.
In other words, I know that there's an echo going on, and I believe this is interference. Because we're talking about really important issues of how the world and America is being held in the matrix that you have identified and that all of us feel. But that, for example, as a country, Americans have been targeted by programming in the media, in the motion pictures, and the controllers of the people who decide which motion pictures are made, which advertising is put on, what the contents of the screenplay is, what the messages are. All of that, because you've been an actress as part of your career and development, that it was the tremendous satanic and diabolical control that there has been in the music industry, in the motion picture industry, a lot of it at the subliminal level, where through music, records, in motion pictures, in TV, it's all like, even at the Super Bowl halftime or at all the award shows, it's, which kind of ritual sacrifice can you enact best that they give the halftime show to. So it seems to me that what you're trying to do is to really remind people of the deep connection between the soul, the positive connection between the soul and sexuality, as you're in the midst of this culture down there. Am I on the right track or not?
Yeah, and it's and all of those things that you mentioned, excuse me, all of those things are, it's so unbelievable when the veil starts to lift and you begin to see it. And that's what I'm talking about, Alfred, when I'm talking about the perception, and I want to bring in a little bit of the archetype teachings around that, because that will give a kind of a clear idea of how we shift our perception. Yeah, there's so much distraction and materialism and addiction. Addiction is huge too. I mean, we're being targeted through, because things are so hard and things are so a certain way. We get targeted with our vices to just check out, just to relieve the suffering sometimes. So we're targeted also through addiction and through, like you said, the media and the motion picture industry and sports events. It's everywhere. A lot of people don't know that, but we'll be learning more about that. I believe a lot of my work brings me into, I do a lot of private mentoring and programs, and brings me into a lot of people now are seeking healing. People who have been people who have experienced really deep, deep wounds around sexuality. And I believe that a lot of these people and sacred souls who have experienced a lot of the trauma and held a lot of that, had to carry a lot of the dark. There are some very deep souls that have gone through this and then are now, through their own process, beginning to heal within and bring it into the light. And so you can never underestimate the healing of even just a few people here and there. The light is so much more powerful. It's infinite, and it doesn't, as we start to bring it in, this reality will, like you said, it will be deconstructed. And that's why there is a lot of targeting of individuals who hold a potential to go to that place. They're being watched a little bit, but once you reach a certain place, you can be harassed and you can be attacked, but you can't be taken out. So it's all about your intention to stay in the heart, and to stay connected to your spirit, and to trust, and to anchor into spirit rather than to be pulled. We need to see these things. We need to, in some ways, fight them and help to reveal them. But it's most important right now to do. For those people who feel called to do the work, because if you can heal, and especially if you've carried a wound, and I see so many people coming forward that are so brave and so and so ready to heal. If you can do that inner work, you will be able to hold an energy that will just. It will be like the sun on the planet. It will be like all the avatar energies will start to come in and just begin to heal and just bring things into light. We're trying to get to a place where it's a little more level playing field, and where we have a chance, where there's not so much manipulation and low. If people can just come up to a certain place.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah, come up to a little bit to where they can see it. There'll still be some work to do. We're still going to have to do a lot of this work. We have to do it ourselves because we've been part of it. But we're getting to that place where there will be more energy available to reveal this and to have more people awaken. And so, yes, there's a very strong agenda to not let that happen. And we know about that. It's very present and it's very there. Focus is learning how to focus and learning how to watch your own emotional body and your own attention and just begin to see where it's taken, where you're, because you're being used every time you give. That it's the power of concentration and focus that makes form. The substance that creates form is run through our focus and our attention. So when everybody is focused on this false light and wanting it, being so just fooled by it, it's helping to hold this in place. But the more people that see with real vision, we begin to, through our eyes, we begin to, they're like fountains that begin to give out the new vision of what we are. I know this is getting a little esoteric in the metaphysical part of it.
No, these are things that we talk about. They may be in slightly different terms. For example, in terms of the positive timeline and unity consciousness, i.e., that's a structural formula to describe a new experience of the hologram. We've gone from a hologram that's characterized by war, disease, crime, and poverty to a hologram that could be called landing paradise on Earth. And so you're talking about waking up to the fact that we're in a new hologram, that we're in a new timeline in the hologram in which one can access these new experiences now. And so it's not necessary to be trapped in these old experiences, but we have to relearn. So could you talk about how individuals in our audience, just people, how can we start to take the practical steps to just relearn? How can we relearn these sort of access to more of the, what we used to call Kundalini rising, all of that. How does that happen?
Well, a big piece, a very big piece to this whole healing that we're talking about is that the balance between the collective masculine and the collective feminine on the planet, it was wiped out completely. I mean, when we look at the world, even though we, in certain parts of the world, we might believe that everything's okay, but the relationship between Adam and Eve, the collective man and woman, was suffered in this fallen consciousness. And so there's work. We're all healing our own inner masculine and our inner feminine. However, there's also, because of our containers that we are embodied in, there's also some unique healing that's happening with the collective man and the collective woman. The woman is healing her understanding of, and so this is for all women, if you're hearing this, remembering creating a new understanding of what it means to be a woman, and what your sexuality is and how you are. Women began to see themselves literally as objects, and it goes deeper than just being beautiful and being sexually desirable and all of that, but we began to place all of our worth in something that's born and moves through time and changes and dies. So we come in as a beautiful child. We move through this timeline of our own life where we see ourselves as desire and beautiful at a very, in this little window, and then we move beyond it. And so there's this heavy pain that the collective woman carries because this is true. This does happen, and we do love beauty, and we are attracted to beauty. And there's a season in our life when that is very, very much who we are. However, we got so attached to that the woman, there's a collective wound in the feminine that believed believes that, and we pass it down to our younger women, and we even play the part pretty well. We birth children who play the part, and we play the part. We women have to remember that we are a portal into this world. We are in the tarot, it's Dalet, it's the Empress. We are the door, the Hebrew letter Dalet. We're the door into the world. All souls have to come through the body of the woman. And we are also in many ways the door back into the spirit world. And so we our connection to that vertical alignment to the spirit world is truly one of the gifts that we as women offer humanity. The Holy Spirit works very powerfully directly through the collective woman, and she's very resonant to the collective heart. We all are part of the heart, but the woman holds a deep connection to qualities of understanding divine love, of understanding how to be in alignment with how to create in the physical world, because in truth, the feminine projection becomes the material world, not only through the body, but through the eyes and the heart as well. The feeling force. The male, I'm really happy you asked this question, because I want to say that men like yourself, and men that are so present and so awake and looking around and saying, how can we do this, and reaching out and beginning to bring in all the pieces and beginning to really just really help heal the collective male energy on the planet. When a man does his spiritual healing, he begins to understand what happened on the planet, but what happened with human beings and man and woman. And when a man carries that understanding, it's so powerful. It's so, just to understand, he'll begin to look at women differently. It doesn't mean that he won't be aroused by beauty, or that he won't be attracted to women, or that he won't still experience the appetites of the physical world, but he'll have such an understanding of that divine dance between the male and the female, and he'll understand how the collective feminine was actually was harmed so deeply, and brought into a place where she stopped playing her true role, which is to really help the collective human race to have that vertical link with spirit. And the male is very strongly linked to the horizontal plane and the physical world, and the understanding of courage and power and light and consciousness. And together we create the whole. And so when a man heals at this time, it's so sacred. And it doesn't mean he'll look different, doesn't mean he'll stop hanging out with his friends or act different, but he'll look with discernment and see how beautiful this earth is, and how beautiful that the female is. And as well, the female who heals will have such an appreciation for the masculine presence. And again, this doesn't mean that I'm not playing to stereotypes, because we all have, some women are more masculine and some males are more feminine. However, but because of our bodies and because of the parts we have, we are linked to a particular field of consciousness. That if you're a woman, you're going to be linked to the female consciousness, and the male in doing some of this spiritual healing. And remembering how we get along in this world, because if we get along, you can erase a lot of what we're seeing right now. And if we get along within relationships and within families and within marriages and within leadership and within creativity and finance, it's just going to be different. It's really about, if you want to really break it down on earth, it's about remembering how men and women can get along and appreciate each other. It sounds very simple, but it's huge. It's a huge part of it. And I know, looking at you as a man, that you hold that spiritual wisdom to understand what I'm saying, and to know within your own within your own consciousness what that means. It means just a new discernment. It doesn't mean boring. It doesn't mean no fun. It means a lot more fun, I think. I think it's going to mean that we have more options and more love, a little more love in this world.
Well, let me ask you this, which just popped up, but it's a question that I've wondered about for a long time. I think that they're male and female souls, or are our souls pretty much equivalent? And then if we incarnate into a female body, that's just what the avatar does. So that's how we maneuver that body. If we incarnate into a male body, and now the reason that we're having so many transgender people is that soul said, you have a transgender experience. I'm going to incarnate into one, and then I'm going to figure out that I should be one. So then I'm going to have that 3D experience. So, do you think that there are male souls? Do you think there are female souls? Or do you think it's just a blanket soul? How's that all work?
I think okay, I don't have the whole answer because I haven't gotten the complete download yet on all of it. So we have a lot of different information, but this is where what has come through a lot in my work and I know in other people's as well. First of all, we have to honor all paths. Every human being, and I have a podcast about sexuality called The New Human Sexual Paradigm. So we talk about these things a lot. When you talk about sexuality, our sexuality is individual for every human being on this planet. All paths need to be honored and be sacred, and all choices of exploration are completely valid in this experience as a soul coming into matter. I believe that we experience that our soul experiences both male and female, that we have a certain run at both. That we, this is from my own meditations. I believe we have lives that we experience the male experience in embodiment and the female. And that I have received information that sometimes as we ascend into into our higher consciousness that is now really the living embodiment of our higher self, that we are able to kind of choose which direction we're going to serve out. I don't know if that's permanent. I kind of do believe that we'll be in service to one or the other through our choice as an ascended soul. I don't know if that, I really don't know if that's a permanent thing or if, I think it's infinite and will go on and on and on. However, speaking to transgender, the transgender embodiment. Yeah, I think there's at this time, there's a couple different things going on. In some ways, we're beginning to merge back into our realization of both inner masculine and feminine. We have both, truly. And so some souls are wanting to experience both or feel they need to experience what they didn't get in their physical body in order to complete that healing in those experiences and that understanding. And then there is another line where there's some confusion and some manipulation. So there's some areas of sexuality that are being manipulated in order to create confusion, and to scramble the energies that the body carries, because if they get a little scrambled, they are collectively, it can begin to go off into a different direction, and that's another topic. But
right. Okay, let's go to a different question. Is if you get into, because I remember listening to Dr. Carl Kalman, who is a real time science scholar, studying time through the Mayan calendar. And what he said recently that this kind of quadrant that we're in now in terms of the rollout of time, and, you know, after the interdimensional portal at the core of our universe began broadcasting after a certain period of time, say December 21st, 2012, it says October 28th, 2011, and subsequent time periods. That's what's really going on now. The two things that are most powerful are, number one, the most powerful signal that's being broadcast through the interdimensional portal at the core of our universe is the return of the divine feminine. That's the most powerful signal. There are other signals afterwards. The second most powerful signal, believe it or not, is everything concerned with the internet.
With the internet?
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, like, these are practical things. So now, when I think of the return of the divine feminine, just look around, and you don't have to excuse me, okay? But if I look around at a city like Vancouver, right, or any typical city, the women look like goddesses, and like slobs. Excuse me.
Oh, interesting.
In terms of energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of dudes look very, he's got his energy together, but the women are like over the top, right? So I associate that with the return of divine feminine, really a manifestation of just like layer, divine energy coming through. And it seems to me, and if you go back into prehistory, the statue of the divine is always the goddess. It's always the mother that's giving birth, right? It's always the goddess. That at some point, there was a deception. There was a revolt, a rebellion, and a deception. And the deceivers, male god, in the place of what's really there, which is the goddess, right? And so now the matrix is falling, is being deconstructed. So the reality is that the goddess, what's real is that the goddess is coming back in a transitional period, right? I mean, you don't say, and God sent his only begotten daughter. And God sent her only begotten daughter. Right?
Yeah.
But now it's changing. Could you sort of trace out for us how you see that the goddess is emerging, the false male gods are being feminine, and the divine feminine, as you said, is being associated with life. I mean, I asked the question the other night at a dinner party, and I didn't get a satisfactory answer. What are men good for? I didn't get a satisfactory answer.
Oh, that's funny.
No, really. Yeah. What are men good for?
I'll answer the first part of that and leave that other one for later. So the return of the divine feminine, our planet, the archetype of our planet is the goddess, and we really are. We are the planet. We are an extension of her. So the goddess, and I refer to her as Sophia, the goddess that within the planet, in this polarity, the earth goddess Sophia. She is the mother to the physical, to the human race. And so we all are the divine feminine, both you and I, both man and woman. However, woman, like you said, there is a radiance coming from women now, in a new way. It's beginning to light up. Women are beginning to light. I'm seeing that too. But we are all the divine feminine. We are all the soul. The soul in its polarity to spirit is feminine. And so we are the world's soul, the human being. We are the feminine. We are the bride of the spirit. And because we're being fertilized by the higher part, the higher part, the other polarity of our being, which is spirit. So the goddess is also associated with the spirit as well, the solar feminine. But there truly is, the return of the divine feminine is a remembering of the sacredness of our planet, that she is a live being, and that we are part of her. To even to rape and exploit the planet the way we have is to, we're doing the very same thing to the human soul. The planet is our body. We are an extension of her. So what's being returned is a remembering of that sacred life force that is present in nature and in all of us. It's alive. When we see with the right perception, nature is not just it will change. We can see that behind the veil, under that veil of Venus, is spirit alive and dancing, and it's in all of us. And so that is the return of the divine feminine, the remembering that the soul is alive and is the bride. We are all this divine feminine bride of creation. Creation is the feminine polarity of the absolute, because we are creation. We've come out of this void into creation. And so there really is. I'm so glad you mentioned that. There's the return of that energy is undeniable. We're in it. And the sun, that information is traveling on the rays of the sun to our planet with even just the solar eclipse we just had and the lunar eclipse we're having. We're in a pocket where we're being just given light. And of course, there are people who would like to see that not happen, but it's happening. And it is the time for that. And it's about all of us. It's not just about women. It's the divine feminine is in you too, and it's your sacred. It's life. We fell into anti-life. The divine feminine is the life, is the love and the life force. It's the true. This world, when we get into what's the fallen paradigm, it's anti-life. It's more about the synthetic and the inorganic. It's not about the organic life process. When we come down in consciousness, enter into something that's not about honoring life and that energy. So that's good to hear that's the message that's being the main message right now. I think it is.
Well, so you help people get through to the new paradigm. In your life's work.
Yeah. Oh, well, I do a lot of mentoring one-on-one. I work with people who are, this is the beautiful thing. Souls, there are many, many souls on this planet that are master beings that have come in to do specific work and that have come in to go through the different layers of the dark and bring the light out of the dark and back into the light of consciousness. So that I have people who are wanting to heal sexual wounds and shift their understanding. I do a lot of work one-on-one, but I also I'm doing a program called the Inner Mystery School of Divine Love, and it's about So that part of my work involves taking people into the inner sanctum of the heart to receive that communicate. We each have our own inner teacher and our intuition. The intuition is the divine feminine. It's intuition. And when we're able to return back into that, the spark is housed in the heart. That one tiny little spark of life is in the heart. The heart is like the womb that is the microcosm of the great heart, the cosmic heart and the cosmic womb of life. We each have that in our own body. And so part of my work involves working with people to remember how to go into that place and then receive that transmission from within. It's the ultimately we all will have to find our own inner voice and our own inner teacher. That is our divine birthright, to have the link to intuition and guidance through our heart that is incorruptible. It is the pure voice of our own awakened self that lives within us. And so part of it is that and that's very fulfilling. I love doing that kind of work. And then I'm doing this show where people are wanting to talk. The more people start talking about healing, you would be surprised. I couldn't even believe it when I really started getting into this work, how many people are ready to, both men and women, I work with both, are ready to talk about things that they've carried their entire lives and felt shame around, felt guilt around, and carried this and we're controlled by those things that we don't heal. The things that we don't give a voice to end up controlling us. So many people are just now simply remembering how to put a voice on those experiences that they've had that were harmful to their heart and to their being able to love freely.
Right. Could I ask you something? Maybe you're already doing it. Based on the number of inquiries that I've had over the past number of years that we've been uncovering, and helping publicize the whole area of childhood sexual abuse and pedophilia and ritual child sacrifice. It would seem that childhood sexual abuse victims grow up into adult, and they've had this tremendous sexual scar, are in need of such a support system, such classes. Do you have special classes for people that say they've gone through this ritual sexual abuse as infants or children, or they're survivors of childhood sexual abuse? Is that something that you work with?
Well, I do a lot of that in the one-on-one. I haven't brought that in. I haven't brought that particular kind of work into a group, other than I do a podcast. In this year, it's the new human sexual paradigm. I haven't started. I'm getting ready to go in that direction where we touch upon that even deeper. I'm in contact with a lot of people who write to me and want to do that work, and I'm getting ready to. It's very it's a big responsibility to hold that space because we're the human beings. We are so powerful, and when we're wounded, we hold that wound, and that wound is almost like its own entity. And so there's different levels of people wanting to heal. Some people are still needing to do some therapeutic work where they're able to release a little bit of it, because it can take over. As you know, it's very complex. We're very complex when we get wounded, and even when two human beings mate with each other sexually, I say this: we're opening up our wounds in our subconscious mind, and we're sharing them with each other. It's very, very intricate what happens when we unite sexually with another human being. I do plan to do group work, as you mentioned, and I also will be addressing it through writing and through a book, which I believe will be really powerful. A good place to start by the reading.
Right. Now, how can people get in contact with you in your world? If people are wanting to really engage in your area.
Well, I have my website is artofthefeminine.com, Art of the Feminine, and the Facebook page is very active. There's a lot. It's a very active page, and it's a really good community on Facebook. Art of the Feminine is where I post a lot of what's going on. I also have a newsletter. There's I'm easy to find, and the podcast is great. It turned out to be just a really nice platform to bring. It's all over the world. I mean, it's reaching everywhere, and people that want exactly what you're talking about are coming together and making contact, and it's growing, and it's people are starting groups all over, kind of based on just that work that I'm aware of, and writing to me that it's bringing, it's helping, it's giving other people a place to connect into. I think when I do these podcasts, I just kind of meditate and bring in what's meant to come in around that. But people tell me they're just looking for a place that vibrationally to connect with, that begins their process. And so I think the podcast is one of those places. And so the podcast, you can find it. It's on iTunes. It's Art of the Feminine, Calls with Shannon Port. But that's been really a nice way to connect with people and come and ask questions on the call. That's one way.
How was it that you were in the theater, I think? How was it that you evolved into this area?
Oh, I really had the connection as a very young girl. I was thinking about that today. It came with me. I know that when I was about 3 or 4, I remember being really drawn to nature and starting to feel the communication with the planet, and feeling the relationship between the human race, the planet, and the energies that are coming into the planet. I remember just soaking it in and knowing it was there. And then I went through childhood. At times that was closed. As times it opened back up. There was different initiations and life lessons that came in for me that brought me the experiences that I needed in order to have the information to go forward and do this work. And so as I've had to dance with both the light and the dark in my lifetime, in order to bring in some of that information through my own experience, and to embody the going through it and then coming up. So I was an actress and a dancer. Yes, I was in New York City acting, and I loved the theater, and I loved it. But I began to see in the industry of acting and commercial work and commercial auditions and being in office agents and casting calls. And I began, my own inner path began to take over, and it was to do this work. But I got some good training as an actor, and I love the performing arts are wonderful as a way. They're a beautiful tool of the goddess. But I began to see through the industry and just be sitting in auditions with hundreds of people and feel that the energy that was really running that industry, meaning commercial television, film, and because I was going to auditions all day, every day. And I just didn't feel right. I felt that it was really shallow. And so as I began to, I was also always on the spiritual path, and reading and writing and creating. And I was actually teaching yoga in New York City way back then. And through relationships were a huge part of my healing. Through the relationships that came in, love relationships, it cracked me open deeper, and I just I realized why I was here. That's what happened. It came in a pretty profound way, and it all began at that time. So I stepped away from the world of acting, but something just as beautiful showed up, and that's how it happened.
Right.
And creative.
Yeah.
Right. That's part of the
evolution.
evolution.
So we've we've come to the end of the segment, but do you have something that, or any points that you want to share with our audience that you haven't had the opportunity to share as yet?
Yeah. I want to say that to always, when there's a lot of videos on YouTube and a lot of people sharing now, and when you start to wake up and be on the path, you start looking at a lot of different things, and it's always wise to just listen and take what serves you and what is beneficial to your path. And if there's anything that doesn't resonate, to just let it go and to discard it, to take the good always, to take what resonates, and then to try not to fall into the what we see happening now, where people are taking it on and getting into such a polarized mentality with everything, but to just be drawn to what serves you and connect with that. And then if there's something that doesn't serve you, to let it go. And there was one other thing, but I think, yeah, I think that's it. Honor your word. Honor the way you speak and the way you listen and the way you love other human beings. It's the best place to start, because you can have all the spiritual information in the world. You can think you know everything in spirituality, but the way we speak to each other and the way we address our fellow human beings is everything on this path. In order to embody this consciousness that you and I have just been talking about, there has to be a real respect for one's own self, one's own word, and one's own ability to listen to other human beings, even when you disagree with them or even when you think they're full of it, to just listen, have compassion, and then act from that place. And that's really how we're going to heal. We're going to remember how to work together. And so,
very, very well said. Thank you so much. Well, this has been quite a journey that we've gone on in this program. And I thank you for bringing the whole topic of healing into this work that we've been engaged in for a while now, of exposing all of this trauma and violence in the pedophile and child sacrifice world. And we hope that perhaps from time to time you can come back and share with us what's happening in your world as well.
I would work that you're doing, and it was wonderful to connect with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.